Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
Yes, it is, fellow Midnight listeners. This is Jeff Norton of the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast coming to you live from the great state of Florida, from the Nature Coast. Wow, we got a show lined up for you tonight. We have a very special guest that's going to be joining us in a few minutes. Gerard Aartsen, I hope I got that right, but we'll get him pulled up here in a second as I see him grinning there in the video feed. Give you guys a little bit of news before. One thing you learn very quickly when you're in this business: don't ever post an article to see if to show people how to see if the NSA is listening to their iPhone, unless you're ready for the repercussions. Oh my Lord! Since we posted that instruction, so if you are using an iPhone, and we posted the instructions on how to use the iPhone or how to check to see if your iPhone is being monitored by the NSA, we have been under a constant denial of service attack. That is right, my friends. We are definitely under a denial service attack. It's amazing because we know it's a denial service because our provider's telling us that, number one. And then number two, the analytics, none of the analytics are clicking. So it's not because of load on, people visiting our site. It's our whole server is under complete attack, which is just typical, right? I expect a little bit better from my government and everything. It's just this is getting to the point to where it is almost absurd. But apparently they don't want us to know this information. And how do they think we found out about it? That's the question that people have to ask, is that how does the government, are they going to shut down Google? That's what I want to know. Is the government going to just attack Google? Why don't they just attack Google? Because that's how we found out, is through, actually, a good friend, Joseph Reyna, Five Eagles, showed us last night. But yeah, it's all over Google. We looked it up. But enough of that. It just kind of makes you want to laugh, and we'll get that resolved here. We got our network support engineers working on it as we speak. But tonight's very special guest I want to bring on is Gerard Aartsen. He has been a student of the Ageless Wisdom teaching for over 35 years. His research in the teachings of the Masters of Wisdom resulted in a comprehensive, I got to get my tongue here. I got to drink more coffee. Talk about coffee. Tonight's show is sponsored to you by Tim Hortons. It's the best, cheapest coffee you will ever drink. If you're within 500 miles of a Tim Hortons, I suggest that you go out of your way and get yourself some Tim Hortons coffee and a Danish. And no, YouTube, we are not sponsored by Tim Hortons. I just love their coffee. It's good stuff. Got to go to Canada though to get it. Can't get it in. Well, I've been told by a good friend that you can get it here in Tampa, Florida now. They do have an actual store in Tampa. So they're moving down. Even the Canadians are moving to Florida these days. So getting back to our guest, comprehensive annotated catalog, which he has published online as Our Elders Brothers Return, a history in books. And joining us live from, I want to say the Netherlands, we have on the Skype line, Gerard Aartsen. Now, did I completely step all over your name?
Just a little bit, but I recognize. I know who you're talking to.
Okay, well, we're the only one. How do you say? Because this is a pet peeve of mine. And I'm horrible. If you probably have never followed my broadcast career. One thing, I've lost radio jobs because I cannot say people's names correctly. Literally. So this is a pet peeve.
My family name is pronounced Aartsen. So you're really very close.
Aartsen. Okay, I got that. Aartsen. All right. Is it Gerard?
Gerard.
All right, so it's Gerard Aartsen. Okay, got it.
You can go with the American pronunciation.
Well, but but that's the American elitist kind of thing. No, it's your name, and I will work hard to pronounce it correctly. I mean, like I said, it's a pet peeve of mine. My first radio job was in college and I worked at a jazz radio station there on the campus. And one thing you learn very quickly is you don't want to work at a radio station at a university that's known for its music, because all the professors, especially jazz, because I could never pronounce, because they're French jazz, eclectic jazz all over the world. And I could never pronounce the artist's name. And of course, we had professors there at Middle Tennessee State that they wrote dissertations on these artists. And so I'd get a phone. There's nothing, you're a young man, 19 years old, thinking you're going to take over the radio world and get a professor who basically funds the school, because that's what they were known for, call you up in the middle of the night and chew you out on the air because you can't pronounce someone's name correctly. So it is a pet peeve. But enough of that. Hopefully our site will come back up soon. But
that would help, I suppose.
Oh my God. Do you have an iPhone?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. I was going to say, because I'm kind of curious. Yeah, last night's show, we posted a how-to on how, if you have an iPhone, to see if the NSA here in the United States is monitoring your calls and your browser. So we posted that online to show people how to do it. And ever since then, we've been under a denial of service attack. I mean, and I've never had this issue with this website ever, and now all of a sudden our website's not. It's just, I don't know. It's aggravating is what it is.
But I suppose once it's out, it's not going to be. It's not going to disappear.
Yeah. Well, but we got it off the. So I'm asking, why don't they attack Google?
Good question.
Why don't they go after Google? Because where do you think? I mean, I was told how to do it by a guest on the show last night, but I went out to Google to verify everything, and the instructions are there on Google as well. So it's like, why don't you shut Google down?
Absolutely.
So of course they can't do that because they're all hand in hand. They're all working together. I don't know. Oh Lord. But no, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, and so you're in the Netherlands, correct?
I am.
You are.
All
right.
Amsterdam.
Wow. What's the weather like over there? What's it? Nice.
It's we are having kind of an Indian summer this week. We had a heat wave, tropical heat wave last week, and we're still in. Well, you work with Fahrenheit, but we're still in the 20 centigrades, which is really quite pleasant.
Yeah, I just said that's pretty nice. That's in the 7. That would be about 70, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
I'm very bad with you're bad with names. I'm bad with numbers.
Yeah. 20. You're actually at you're at 68 degrees.
Is it okay?
At 20, yeah. Well, that's comfortable.
Yes, it is.
That's good sleeping. I mean, we're still. I'm in Florida, so we're still in the 80s, high 80s, mid 90s. That would be Fahrenheit. So that would be if for you guys that would be 32 centigrade.
Yeah, that's what we had last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Selling a lot of ice cream.
Very unusual for this time of year too.
Yeah.
I mean, we would occasionally have that kind of temperatures in the middle of summer, in July, August perhaps, but never in September.
Yeah.
So that was really unusual.
Yeah. Never gotten in my travels. I've never gotten that's one of the the Netherlands, one of the cities, and I want to go to. I mean, before that's on my bucket list. It's, I was told that I would never leave.
Really?
Yeah, I was.
Well, I know Americans who don't want to leave when they visit, but
yeah, I was told that.
Popular, and it's a nice city, I must say.
Well,
we have nice cities in the U.S.
Yeah, well, it's diverse, but it seems to be it's diverse, but it's kind of. I mean, we're diverse. We have cities that are diverse here, but we're in conflict with that diversity.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
we're
not all, we're not all stable at the moment.
Oh, really? So you guys are having the same turmoil?
We have similar Not quite the same, but similar issues in almost every European country, and Holland is no exception.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, I knew it was getting pretty rough for you guys, but but like I said, here in the States,
and don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near people getting shot, unarmed people getting shot just because of the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Fortunately not, but we've had some incidents, and there's growing xenophobia, etc., etc.
Yeah. No, it's. Yeah, here we definitely have an issue. I mean, we're getting way out of hand, and it's
very sad.
It is very sad.
Here. It's really sad
because it perpetuates. I mean, what the issue is that it perpetuates. It doesn't. You get one side that distrusts the other, and then of course they escalate, and then you get the law enforcement who are now feeling threatened, so that gets them all up and someone just needs to say, stop. Let's just stop this. Yeah. And, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's because everybody's got guns. And it's like, no, it's just because I've never known a gun to load itself and carry itself into a street and shoot someone by itself. There's always a human involved somewhere along in that equation. So we got to just stop. I mean, someone's just got to stop.
There's that, of course. But, from a European point of view, we just don't understand the American infatuation with guns. Because, people's hands don't shoot bullets. You need a gun to shoot bullets.
You're right.
So,
do you know what it is? We're afraid of our government.
Apparently, yes.
No, we are. I can tell you the underlying trend in this country is that there is such a disdain, and it's sad because America is known as the freedom, the country, the freedom of a beacon and stuff. Americans are afraid of their government. That's why it was put in the Constitution. So it's kind of ingrained in us from day one. The reason why you have a Second Amendment is because the government is bad. So you grow up from day one in this country thinking that your government's bad and they're gonna come and take everything you own and they're gonna do things. But you know what? When the government does stuff like denial of service attacks and listens to you on the phone and they've been known to be a little heavy-handed here in the States in some of their case, and police not talking to you respectfully like a human being, calling you names. And using derogatory names towards you. I mean, people are afraid of their government, and that's why. I mean, it's sad. It really is.
It's clear that there's a major issue, social. And I think personally, I think it's to do with inequality and people feeling powerless.
Yes.
I don't know if it's. I can't speak for the U.S., of course, but I think generally speaking, around the world, people feel powerless, and especially in the face of the massive inequality that we're faced with at the moment. Just imagine there's 62 individuals in the world that have the same amount of wealth as 50% of the poorest people in the world.
Correct.
That's just mind blowing. 62 individuals own as much as 50% of the poorest half of the population.
Correct.
The world population.
Correct. And
that kind of inequality, that's of course no amount of hard work or greatness of a country. Americans like to think of their country as the greatest in the world. If one job, if two jobs, or sometimes three jobs isn't enough to sustain you and your family for the basic needs, like housing and food and education, then where are we going?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, we're a great country. Don't get me wrong. I've been all over the world, and I love coming home to America. But we're pretty good at incarcerating people. We're pretty good at there's a lot of negative, starting wars. We're pretty good at doing a lot of that stuff. And trust me, I know this is not the topic for tonight, but I like to hear and I think other Americans need to hear what people think about us and everything. It's just, yeah, I mean, we got a problem and we need to fix it. And
we tend to think you're trigger happy. You know, if you think you can bring freedom and democracy from the barrel of guns to countries where you have no business, you know, then you might want to rethink that.
But you know what? Most Americans agree with you, though. That's the problem. That's why we don't have fear, because
I know.
Because our governments go, trudging in his war. Look, I mean, I'm a parent. I'm actually a grandparent. I've never raised my hand at my children ever. Growing, I got 3 daughters. I got two granddaughters and a grandson, and I've never, because it's counterintuitive. It's the whole thing is why, you yell at your kids for being violent, but yet when you want to punish them, you instantly turn to violence. There's better ways to get what you want. And we in America, because we outspend everybody by almost triple digits in defense. It's kind of like, you're going to do it our way. And if you don't, we're going to bomb you. We don't agree with that here either. You know, with the amount of money that we spend, this is the scary part. The amount of money, and most Americans know this is why they have guns, because they don't like the government. Because think about it, our government is, if you don't go along with them, they'll bomb you. They'll even do that here in the United States. They'll arrest you. You know, they'll send the police, the Gestapo, and that's a wrong term to use, but it's almost like that here in the States. If you don't pay your taxes, if you don't do what they tell you to do, they're going to come and take your property. And they do that here. You know, that's the part of America that a lot of Europeans don't see. They are taking people's lands. They take people's houses. And then you got to go to court against a government that has unlimited resources. And here you are, you can't defend yourself in court because you can't afford the lawyers to defend yourself. And that's why we have guns. So we can fight back.
I would think the people are in the majority. So why don't they get together and change the government, vote in someone else rather than seemingly, why do we have a Hillary Clinton and a Donald Trump running for president? That's too scary, people. I mean, if you're that is scary. The fact that we are politicians that are running for the highest and basically the highest office in the world, because, let's face it, the military does have that military might. Here in the United States, over 70% of the people don't trust either of our candidates running for president of the United States. I can well imagine
that. Don't trust them, and they have every right not to. It's scary. But that's because we're controlled, though. The media, the only thing that you only hear the one, whatever the media here in the United States wants you to hear. I get almost all my media from Europe. I mean, that's the news I watch. I watch BBC and I watch RT, and I don't trust mainstream media, but that's not what we're here to talk about, though. Let's switch subjects. I don't want to get too political.
Maybe it is in part. But perhaps we'll get to that.
Yes, absolutely. As I see that our website has decided to behave here, it's so funny. It is so funny. But so, sir, you are I say an expert on extraterrestrial presence here on the world, on the earth. So let's start. I guess the best way to start is at the very beginning. How did you get into this field? How did you get into this topic line?
See, I'll leave the expert part on your side of the table. I mean, that comes from you. That's your words. Okay. I don't know if I could be called an expert. But I seem to be one of the very few people who take the original account, the accounts of the people who were originally contacted in the 1950s seriously. They seem to have been forgotten or being ignored, or because they were derided and ridiculed starting at some point in the 1950s. But I got involved in all this because as you read my bio, I've been a student of the Ageless Wisdom teaching for all my life. The Ageless Wisdom teaching is a body of knowledge, of wisdom, of teachings that have actually accrued, grown, throughout humanity's history on this planet. And you can find it really in the essence of every religion. And it's not a religion in itself. It's not an art. It's not a philosophy, and it's not a science. But it's a bit of all of those things. And in modern times, contemporary times, the wisdom teachings were reintroduced to humanity through the works of Madame Blavatsky, starting in 1875. Listeners may know her for her books The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled. Her work was expanded on quite significantly in the first half of the 20th century through Alice Ann Bailey, who wrote 19 volumes in all. And most recently, there have been other people who have written their particular contribution to this whole body of teachings. But the most recent exponent would be Benjamin Creme, a British artist originally, and who gave up a lot of his time for this work. And he has explained, again, elaborating on the work done by Alice Bailey, the purpose of the wisdom teachings being introduced to modern man, which is the fact that, and that's also something that we find at the heart of every religion, at the beginning of every new cosmic cycle, a teacher appears to give humanity a revelation, a new revelation. It reveals a new aspect of divinity that that wasn't known to us before the appearance of that teacher. And historically, we know such teachers as Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and all the other names that we know from mythology or history. These teachings, the custodians of these teachings are what are known as the masters of wisdom. And they are in fact, because the teachings are basically about the evolution of consciousness. Science knows almost everything there is to know about the evolution of the physical form. And mankind has evolved out of the animal kingdom, and the animal kingdom has evolved out of the vegetable kingdom, and that came out of the mineral kingdom. But out of the human kingdom, we are not the pinnacle of creation, as we might like to think, but out of the human kingdom has evolved a kingdom that is populated by people who are no longer strictly people, but who have sort of realized their inner divinity in the sense that they are able to express their divine essence. Everyone is seen as a soul in incarnation, and all of us go through the process of incarnation after incarnation to better equip ourselves to express and manifest that inner divinity, which we then need to express in our relations to other people. Sure. So we have this well, in Christian terms, the kingdom of souls that consists of the masters of wisdom and the initiates of the wisdom, and they have been giving these teachings since 1875. And
hey, Gerard, let me stop you right there because we're at a hard stop, a break. And then when we get back, we got to do these things that pay the bills around here called commercials. All right. So we'll be back.
Yes.
Yep. Give us 4 minutes. We'll be back at the bottom of the hour. I forgot the time zone difference. So, but we'll work it out. But you are listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast with a very special guest, Gerard Aartsen. We'll be back in a few.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us live right here every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web 24/7 at www.themidnightocean.com. If you're joining us for the very first time on YouTube, please make sure that you hit that ever most important subscribe button. I promise you, we will not spam you. We will not send you cute little kitten posters or whatever in your email, or offers to become, the next rich person if you take money out of the bank because you won some lottery in some foreign country. No, that's not what we will do. We will actually just send you show update and show information, feature guests, things of that nature. The other thing that you can do too that will help us out tremendously is if you are in social media, make sure that you get over to our media page over on Facebook, and you can get to there by typing in The Midnight Ocean. That's The Midnight Ocean there in the search button. Hit search, and that will take you right to our page. But without further ado, we have all the way from the great country of the Netherlands in the area, from Amsterdam, one of the greatest cities. I would say that Travel Magazine said that Amsterdam is one of the greatest cities in the world to travel to, is our very special guest, Gerard Aartsen. Did I get that right, Gerard?
Yes, you got it right.
Yeah, all right. See, my professors are all happy with me now.
You can get your first job back.
I get my first job. Yeah, no, I was never. I think the requirement for being a radio DJ is you actually got to enjoy the music that you're playing. As I get older, I like jazz, but I'm not a big jazz fan. I'm a classic rock, maybe a little redneck country, and all right. Yeah, I like my country music. We play the jazz because I guess it's during our break. Most of our music it has a jazz twist to it because that's kind of a neutral music.
Right. Yes.
So no one's going to complain. People might go to sleep, but they're not going to complain about it too much. So before we were taking a break, we were talking about your work and the Masters of Wisdom.
Yes, well, before I got so rudely interrupted, being a student of the Ageless Wisdom teaching, I studied those books, but I also read George Adamski's books. Yeah. Flying Saucers Have Landed, Inside the Spaceships, and I thought they were fascinating. What I didn't know until I started to look into his life, when I obtained some of his obscure publications that have never been reprinted, was that he actually published his first book in 1936, and that book was titled Wisdom of the Masters of the Far East. So then there was a direct link between my own background as a student of the wisdom teachings and my other interests. Space visitors, space brothers, flying saucers, the extraterrestrial presence on Earth, and it was fascinating to me to see that his first publication, his first booklet, chimed completely with what I had read already in the books by the people that I mentioned before the break. That triggered my interest even more. So I set out to look into Adamski's life, and it turned out I didn't manage to piece everything together, but what I found was strong evidence from several sources that as a teenager he was sent to Tibet to study with some of the Masters of Wisdom there as a teenager. And in fact, the knowledge, the wisdom that he obtained there is very much in sync with what he was later given by his contacts from space. So that's, and that all relates to the oneness of life, the evolution of consciousness, the oneness of life around the solar system and the universe, and how it's essential that we relate to each other, on this planet as human beings, proper human beings at that, seeing ourselves as one human family. Mm-hmm. I mentioned it briefly, a lot of people have derided and ridiculed the accounts of the original contactees because Adamski was not at all the only one, not by far. There were many others: Daniel Fry, Truman Bethlehem, Buck Nelson, Howard Menger, although he published his book a bit later in 1959. And they were all given apparently the same information. And they were, these were all Americans, but you also have Wilbur Smith in Canada. You have Dino Kraspedon, the pseudonym for Aladino Felix from was it Argentina or Brazil? I forget. There were people in Italy. They were all getting the same information. That's my doorbell, which I will ignore. They were getting the same information about the importance of relating to each other on this planet as one big family, and therefore we need to take care of each other. Yeah. And rather than being naive mystics who were announcing alien saviors or whatever else people made of it, they were given a rather empowering message. Humanity can do it. And of course we must remember, this is in the midst of the Cold War. This is when Russia, the Soviet Union, and the United States, with their respective allies, were head to head with nuclear weapons threatening. I was born in 1957, but I still remember very palpable tensions. Mm-hmm. My parents being worried about when are the Russians coming, when is the bomb going to fall. These respective governments, the Americans, the British as well, and the Soviets on their side, they needed the support of their population. So this message of universal brotherhood and people needing to, the nations of the world needing to work together to cooperate internationally to solve our problems rather than blow ourselves up. That wasn't really in the interest of the American government or of the British government or the Soviet government, I imagine. Mm-hmm. Although we don't know anything about the contacts in that part of the world in that time of history. So it's for that reason that they started a campaign to confuse and scare the public, because this message was really very popular and becoming more and more popular as time went by. And more people started to speak out. Yeah. Just to give an example, the book that had Adamski's first encounter, the description, and it also had a lengthy historical overview by Desmond Leslie of UFO sightings called Flying Saucers Have Landed, was published in 1953. Within 3 years, and it was published simultaneously in the US and in the UK. Within 3 years, it had seen 12 reprints and had been translated in 7 other languages. That's for a non-fiction book, and it was, some people consider it fiction, but it was definitely presented as non-fiction. I believe it was non-fiction. Yep. That's unique. Seven translations, within 3 years. It's unique.
That says a lot, especially back then. When the information, it's not like it is now, where you can just get a book. This is word of mouth, kind of the marketing of people saying, "Hey, look, I got it. This is a great book." A lot of teaching, and that's how back then. That's how books got sold. And when you have that many books being sold, that just tells you how prolific it is.
And how popular, or how much it spoke to people's aspirations.
Sure.
Without the internet, before email, way before that. So it's I think it's a good indicator of how much it rang with people, how much they aspired towards those ideals that were held before us.
So Gerard, where did we go wrong?
Well, in the field of UFO research and the whole contactee movement, what happened, of course, was that the disinformation campaign started to secure the public's support for the arms race. Hollywood was enlisted, even starting in 1953, there were features coming out about invaders from Mars and the threat from outer space, etc., etc. And since that time, not only were those first original accounts not taken seriously anymore, but also a lot of fear and confusion and speculation has come into the whole narrative, to the point that now nobody takes anything for granted anymore. There's massive distrust and suspicion. And on the one hand, you have people who still believe in some kind of savior species from the inner galaxy coming to I don't know, activate DNA, all kinds of rather fantastic stories, so that apparently we don't have to do much ourselves to get out of this mess. And on the other hand, you have equally fantastic stories, very speculative, about secret space programs and jump rooms to Mars, and none of which has any foundation in facts that have been or could be ascertained. It's in terms of UFO research or solid information about the extraterrestrial presence, we're really far from where we could be. We've lost sight of the facts that we could know if we care to look at the original sources.
And so do you believe that there's an extraterrestrial presence here now currently?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I think they've been here since the dawn of humanity on this planet.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying that that we are their offspring or anything, but they have a vested interest in this planet in the sense that we are an integral part of the solar system.
Yeah. I guess the way that I view it back in the 50s, it's kind of like with these books and this exposure that came out. It's kind of like you invite them to dinner. And then they come to dinner and you're having a great conversation with them, and all of a sudden you start ridiculing them and you start making fun of them, and so of course they're not going to come to dinner to you anymore. So I was just wondering if they just got off the planet and said, we give up on these people, or if they're still here and there's still hope for us. They're still holding out hope. And
they're still here, except in the 50s too, there's several reports that say that they have offered our governments, not just the U.S. government, but the major governments of the world at that time, help in with advanced technology if we would give up nuclear power.
Oh.
But again, in the middle of the Cold War, and which was an ideological war, neither side would want to voluntarily give up that just rather new weaponry.
Yeah.
They sort of retreated. Yeah, one of the requests was, one of the conditions was, and you tell your people about the reality of our presence here, of our visits. We'll help you with technology, but you have to renounce war and you have to give up your nuclear technology. and neither of that happened, of course, as we know.
Yeah.
So they resorted to individual contact. They maintained individual contacts throughout, ever since the first contacts of the 1950s, because they're here and they're not going away just because our governments don't like them to be here.
But if I was a superior being, and I get that, I mean, if an alien came to me and said, "Look, I can grant you one wish," right? Or a higher being, I'll say a higher being came to me and said, "Look, I can grant you one wish." I think for most part, people, unless you're just completely self-centered, and there are out there, I mean, most part people would, for all humanity, I grant you one wish for all humanity. Most people would say, well, we wish for peace, right? The government would say exactly what you said. We need the next bomb. We need the best weapon. And it's just, so I guess my question though is that if I was a higher intelligent or higher being, why don't I just bypass the government and just go right to the people?
Well, they do go to the people, but not en masse, because first of all, we've had all these scary stories of alien invaders. Mm-hmm. So imagine if they would land by the thousands, which they could, because they're constantly here all over the planet. They would, it would cause massive heart attacks. Thousands of people would die for fear. Just because of the indoctrination. So they wouldn't want anything to do with that. At the same time, we must remember that being more advanced, especially not just technologically, because it needs to keep pace with the moral and the ethical advancement. Being more advanced, they also recognize the inalienable right to every individual, every nation, every species for self-determination. And like them or not, but our governments are our governments. They're our representatives on that level. And if we have elected them through whatever crooked democratic process, if they were elected because corporate interests have influenced our democratic and judicial processes in such a way that they can have their people at the helm, then that's a system that we have allowed to come into being over the last, especially the last 40 years.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Star Trek model, self-determination. If this
exactly,
is
it's the prime directive. That's exactly what it is. We know it from the Star Trek series, but it's an actual universal principle. If they would do something that would violate our free will, that would trespass our right to self-determination, then they would be violating universal laws. And they would never do that since they are more advanced in every respect. So that's the answer to your question. They simply don't get involved in those kind of things. They don't break laws. We are very apt to break laws here. We do it all the time. Whether it's in traffic or in government or wherever, and especially in relation to our fellow human beings. Yeah. We infringe people's free will all the time. Just simply, you have a radio station, a radio program. You have bills that need to be paid. But the simple fact of commercials, people in America, even more than in Europe, and in Europe, we're used to them now too, but commercials are such an invasion of our right to think for ourselves. Yeah. We really have no idea how invasive they are.
Oh, they're huge. It's not, how do I say this? I'm trying to get, there was a gentleman in Britain that wrote a book called the Transvoc Institute. And it basically talks about mass manipulation through various means. And one of that, look, it is all, through commercials and, every word, everything is spoken in especially in the States, that's done over mass media has been dissected to maximize its most potential audience. Right.
And the interesting thing is, this was also pointed out by some of the contacts from space through Wilbert Smith, the Canadian researcher and contactee. And in my latest book, Priorities for a Planet in Transition, I quote and draw from a book by a Dutch contactee who had an experience around 1965. He was actually a businessman. He was an importer, the director of an importer's company for Swedish trucks, Scania trucks. And he was told the same thing, that our ways of denying people the right to think for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, etc. But we don't give each other freedom to think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where it should start.
Yeah.
If you don't have freedom to think, what are you going to express? You're just going to express what the next person has said already.
Yeah.
Or, you don't have any original thoughts. You don't have any critical thoughts.
Yeah. And, actually that's what's going on here in the state. I think it's going on worldwide. And that once again goes back to that fearful of the government, because there used to be a time where creativity was, a corner pin of our society. And now it's rebroke. It's, repetition. Our education systems are repetition. The other thing too is, and I think this is part of our problem here in the States, and I'm all for helping those that need help. But there's a point in which, kind of like the aliens said, look, we got to step back here and let these people self-determination. Because if you continually, support people over generations, here in the States, we have generational wealth, what they call generational welfare, where you have families who several generations, almost 3 generations deep, they don't work, and they get the government thing. So the problem is that they have the mindset that is how it should be. So they become drones, I guess, would be the thing. So you lose creativity there. And it's just insane.
Well, actually, I don't know if they become inactive because their basic needs are met. I think the problem is deeper, and I think it's because, our lives lack meaningful purpose these days. And,
exactly.
The government, you say lots of Americans are distrustful of their government, and I think that's mostly not. I think the problem nowadays is to do with corporate interests running the government.
Well, yeah,
It's not so much that government in itself as a principle is bad, but if government has sort of been taken over by corporate interests,
you're right.
Then and of course that's what happens when you throw out all the regulation handbooks out of the window, so that corporations can just roam free and look after themselves. That's what they will do, and that's what they have been doing over the last 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, because when I said the comment about the drones, is that the whole idea with my concept of the drone is not a person who gets this assistance or whatever and then becomes an artist or becomes a musician or takes that opportunity to I don't want to say, because everybody contributes to society in my eyes. Might be good, might be bad, but everybody contributes one way or the other. But take that opportunity and become culturally efficient, or be out there in culture, literature, or whatever. But the problem is that you got so many people. You're right. They become drones for the corporation. They become the marketable product. They don't better themselves. They don't enlighten themselves. What they do is they sit in front of TV or radio or mass media, and you
get 20 minutes out of every hour commercials. Yeah. What do you expect?
Yeah. Well, we try. Well, we don't do 20 minutes. We only do 8 here.
Oh, that's good. That's much better.
Yeah, we break it up into 2, 4 at the very top, at the very bottom, we 4-minute segments, and so we only do 8. But you're right. I mean, when I started doing this show and talk about commercials, there's one coming up right now. When I started doing the show, everybody's like, "Oh, you got to have one every 15 minutes. You got to have a break." And I'm like, "No, it's not conducive to a conversation." And the only reason why I have commercials, to be honest with you, is because I drink a lot of coffee and I got to refill my coffee. And then, unfortunately, as you get older, you have to deposit less coffee. So that's why we have the breaks. If it was up to me, I would, you know what I would do? I would just put the feed out there with the commercial free, and then tell my radio stations that you can break it up any way you want to. I don't care, but unfortunately I have to take a break. And when we get back, we're going to continue along this line here with our very special guest, Gerard Aartsen is joining us all the way from Amsterdam, where it is currently 68 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll be back in a few.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. It is 10. I don't know what time it is. We're recording this. This is not a live show. But hey, if you want to listen to us, you can listen to us live for every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. If you're over at YouTube for the very first time, please hit that ever most important subscribe button. That kind of helps us grow the show, get the word out to everybody. If you're joining us on Facebook or any of the social medias, if you're on Twitter, make sure that you type in the MN Ocean. That's Mary Nancy Ocean, the MN Ocean. And on Facebook is just the Midnight Ocean. Love to have you join the community. You know, we do it. We do offer special gifts to our listeners. That's right. We have a limited edition t-shirt that we're going to be giving out. I also have some other shirts that are going to be made up and given out, as well as gifts to those loyal listeners. But most importantly, it's very important you do this. If you really like this show and you want to support us, tell your friends about our show. Tell your friends, tell your family. You know, if every one of our listeners right now would just tell 5 people, 5 of their friends, if you did it right now, just told 5 of your friends about us, we would become one of the largest podcast paranormal radio shows on the internet today. That's right. It doesn't take a whole lot. 5 people. That's all we ask. It's not a whole lot. Think about who you talk to, especially if you're in the paranormal community. How many people you talk to at Facebook and all of the social media sites. If you just picked 5 of those people and said, hey, look, there's a show, might like it. I mean, we're growing. We go through growing pains. We're not perfect, but think about it. Remember the old Art Bell days? Remember what it was like to listen when Art first started doing his paranormal shows? Now, of course, he had a lot of experience doing political shows. For those that don't know, he was the Rush Limbaugh of the time before he got into the paranormal. But you can be part of that. You can actually say, hey, I remember when the Midnight Ocean, when Jeff was making mistakes left and right. You remember that show, that classic show. But hopefully tonight's show with Gerard Aartsen, as he joins us all the way from Amsterdam, is not one of those shows. It's not one of those blooper reels. I'd end up on some blooper reel and say, yeah, remember that show where Jeff's completely screwed up. But no, this is good stuff. I don't know. I should call you by your first name, Gerard. I don't know. Did you listen to last night's show with Brooks Agnew?
No, I can't say I have. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I won't hold it against you. I don't expect everybody to listen. But, you know, we were talking, you know, what's really amazing. And you know, I believe in synchronicity. I don't believe God rolls dice. Right. And last night's show was a kind of what happened is that Brooks came in because I messed up our timing. You were supposed to be last night's guest. So Brooke never talked to him. He does a radio show. We got in contact through a third party, and he came on the show. But at the end of the night, we were the same concept. He was saying, look, it's all about love. If you want to change the paradigm, if you want to travel in time and place he used the bell analogy, place a bell of peace and love, and then go towards that bell in all your thought processes. And so he said, the world would be a great place. He said, think about it, Jeff. at first you got to love yourself, and then you have to love everybody else like they're you. And he goes, if we lived, we could change. He goes, we could change the world instantly, overnight, if we just had that. First, you love yourself. I mean, that's very important. And then after you learn to love yourself, you love others like you love yourself. And, that's the golden rule that Jesus taught. And you know what, though? He's absolutely right. Think about that world. I mean, just close your eyes and think about what that world would look like. It's awe-inspiring. And I think that's where you're going. These wisdom, these masters, that's what they're teaching. They're saying, hey, look.
Yes, and not just, the masters of wisdom who are our elder brothers, but also the brothers and sisters from space, as they have been called by the first contactees. And it's very interesting. The very same thought has been formulated by people who contacted several of the early contactees in the 50s. I would just add one thing to this very truth, which is, yes, we start by loving ourselves and then learning to see everyone else as ourselves, a reflection of us. But then we also need to give that expression. We also have to act on it.
Yeah.
And that is what Jesus gave great examples of that. He never judged or dismissed people who didn't abide by the law. He sat with prostitutes and thieves, etc., etc. And we have no business judging other people. We don't know their backgrounds. We don't know why they do what they do. All we can do is show them by example.
Yeah.
By our own example, which is, and the first thing we should learn to do is give expression to our the sense that we are one human family. And that's, we can do that on an individual scale, but we also need to learn to do that on a global scale, to create global justice and freedom for everyone.
Well, this is the underlying, and this is how, I talk to a lot of people, especially in the political podcast area, and I still have a lot of friends because I did that in a former life. And this is the angst that a lot of people have, and we'll talk like the whole refugee process coming here. Is the reality of it is that most Americans, most of the people I talk to feel that, yes, these refugees, they need to, no one wants a child or a lady or whoever to live in war. I mean, that's horrible. That's horrific. The problem is that this whole idea, like, the boogeyman's under your bed, ISIS, these terrorist threats are under your bed. The fact of the matter is every terrorist attack in the United States, and I think in Europe for the most part, the government knows who these people are. Even the one that happened the other day here in New Jersey, the bombings, the government had interaction. The FBI knew who this guy was and had interaction. So the thing is I'm a firm believer that the government keeps that fear going because it perpetuates their war industrial machine. It perpetuates, we got to have this. Our military needs to have that. We got to have war. Where in essence, the government knows who these individuals are. So unfortunately, what they do is they keep us in angst. Everybody here in the States is nervous about the refugees coming in. And I think that's the most part in Europe. But the government can fix that pretty quick. They can go, you guys can come in. And then we know who the bad guys are. And we're going to lock you up.
But, Jeff, still that would only be fighting symptoms.
Well, yeah.
Because most of these people who are perpetrating these attacks were born here. They are second generation. And the fear for ISIS and the Taliban and Al Qaeda before that, that is basically our own doing. As being Western powers, Western countries, by meddling in countries' affairs where we have no business in the first place.
That's true. I agree. I agree with that.
The Taliban, every single one of the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they were all supported at some point by either the US or Russia, made strong and powerful, and then they get out of hand when they see that injustice is being perpetuated.
Yeah.
If there are no fair trade deals, if Western corporations always get the upper hand, if Western interests are always put before the interests of the local people, the people in the region, then, some elements will radicalize. They will go to extremes, out of sheer frustration.
Yeah.
So, we have to start looking at why. I'm not making excuses for terrorist attacks. I'm saying we need to look at where these problems originate.
Yeah.
If we give everyone a fair chance and not look after number one first, but look after everyone first, the whole human family, we will make sure that there's justice and freedom and I mean socio-economic justice. We talk about refugees, we have real refugees and economic refugees, fortune seekers. But if you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that guarantees everyone the right of freedom from oppression, whether it's religious oppression, social oppression, and also political, but also economic oppression. And economic oppression is what divides the world at this moment, and that's why so many people from Latin America or from South America, Latin America, Central America, are trying to find a better life somewhere else.
Yeah.
In your case, usually in the US or in Canada.
Yep.
The same story here in Europe, and same story in Australia. It's no wonder, because people want the best for themselves and for their families wherever they are.
Absolutely.
Whichever part of the world they're born in. But if they're not given a proper chance because of skewed trade agreements and corrupt governments that come in just because of the inequality and the injustice, then we're asking for these problems.
No, I agree absolutely, and I retract my original hypothesis, because you are correct. I mean, there's if you're a slave to the government or a slave to the corporation, at the end of the day, you're still a slave. And unfortunately, these people are all people. It's just that some people are at different levels of that.
But
of that food chain.
You know what? Because I don't know if you've had time to read any of my books, but actually the information from the space people, the space visitors, the information coming from the Ageless Wisdom teams, from the Masters of Wisdom, is actually very hopeful, because what we see now is an inevitable polarization of viewpoints, standpoints, and definitely also, polarization in terms of economic well-being, welfare, inequality in terms of rich and poor. And that is all. It was foretold not only by Jesus during his mission in Palestine, but also by the space visitors in the 1950s, as a result of the conflict between the energies that are governing the world at the moment. We have the energies from the previous cycle, the old age of Pisces, and the new energies of Aquarius. Listeners may be aware of the cosmic cycles along the, according to the signs of the zodiac. And we see the symbolism of these cycles throughout our history. For instance, the New Testament is filled with the symbol of the fish, and we had other parts of the Bible where they refer to the signs of that time, and people may doubt that energies from distant constellations have such effects on this planet, but scientists have already found that everything is. We live in an energetic universe. So how these energies and influences come about, we're not there yet in terms of our scientific understanding. But it must be quite clear by now that the energies as they have shaped our civilization, if you look at the world as a whole, but of course the western part of the world is dominant. The structures and the institutions that have resulted from our response to those energies no longer fulfill our needs, while the new energies that are coming in fill our hearts with aspiration for the good of everyone. But we haven't had yet built the structures and institutions that will give these new energies and our new aspirations expression. So in the past 2,000 years, humanity has acquired very important qualities of idealism and individualism.
Sure.
Those are the qualities of Pisces. The qualities, the characteristics of Aquarius will be oneness and synthesis. And that's what we're feeling now. And that's what we see in the world now, that conflict between those energies that are withdrawing and becoming weaker, but are still quite powerful, and the new incoming energies that are growing in strength every day. And, that's what we see in the political field, in the economic field, in every field of every human endeavor.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the powers that be are at their last gasp. I mean, they're holding on, and what we're seeing is that last dying breath of them. Because, when I was, let's go back 10 years ago. It was all about the military industrial complex. We need we need more bombs. We need more fighters. We need more ships. We need this. We need that. I am starting to see a trend where people are going, well, wait a minute. The billions of dollars we spend on all of this stuff, we can take a quarter of that, say 300 million, and we can wipe out hunger in the world.
Exactly.
And I'm starting to hear people say that. I'm starting to see people that you would think, even myself. I will tell you, in my old days, I was the chest beater. War. Let's go to war. Pound them. Turn it into glass. Don't ever, don't look back. Who cares? They bombed our towers. They did whatever. I don't care who dies. Get rid of them. Nuke them. Right. We have a nuclear arsenal. Use it. Get rid of them. But even now, as I get older and I'm seeing more of my constituents say the same thing. Say, well, wait a minute. The amount of money that we're spending doing this, we could actually wipe out all hunger in the world. The other thing that came, like Obamacare. This is one thing that Obamacare actually did do here in the United States, is socialized healthcare that we have, or the semi-social healthcare. Most Americans are now sitting there going, wait, the money that the government has spent to do this, we could have given every American $1 million. We could have wrote every American in the United States $1 million, wrote them a check and said, go out and get your own health care. And people are starting to think like that. They're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, we're wasting all of this money and all of this energy, and we could have just got rid of it if we wanted to anyways. It's crazy. And like I said, I think what we're seeing here, especially here in the States, is the dying gasp of that whole, one world order, in a sense, the negative one world order, not the new world order, the corporate takeover. I mean, corporations.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can compare government inefficiency in terms of, socializing healthcare with the exponentially way higher expenditures on defense. But, the military industrial complex has been active and sort of ruling the world even since the 50s.
Yeah.
And I think healthcare is one of the basic needs of every man, woman, child. And healthcare, adequate food, adequate shelter, and education. And these are things with, like you say, with a fraction of even the U.S. spending on defense, we could eradicate all the causes for conflict in the world.
Correct.
And inequality.
Well, I mean, think about,
it's not only in the interest of the people who are starving now, unnecessarily, whether it's, dying from hunger or preventable diseases, but it would be enlightened self-interest of the United States.
Sure. Well, and this is the thing. I mean, here in the States, the most expensive thing is your health care is number one, and education is number two. So if you eliminate that, your cost of living decreases. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you eliminate those two most expensive parts to every family's healthcare and education, making sure their kids are educated, you would eliminate a huge amount of overhead for those families, and thus people can spend it on more appropriate things. Yeah. But the problem is here in America, we don't spend it on the most appropriate things. We spend it on cars. We spend it on 2, 3 cars, 4 televisions. 2 houses. You got to have a summer and a winter house.
You know what you spend it on, and not just Americans, but a lot of, most of us in Europe as well. Competition. That is such a major waste of resources and talent and creativity and money. It's unbelievable.
Oh, I agree. I mean, Sam, we went through that phase. I will tell you, we had the huge house when we lived up in Chicago. We had the big house and everything. We downsized drastically. We now adopted a principle that if you don't use it, we get rid of it. We donate it. We don't throw it away, but we donate it. And I can tell you, we are the happiest that we've ever been in our whole entire life, is because we don't have to worry about maintaining all that stuff. Right. We can, it takes us 20 minutes to clean our house. It takes us, we can enjoy life a lot more, and life is good. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we
what's more, I mentioned the story and the book by one of the contactees, the Dutch contactee. Mm-hmm. His pseudonym was Stefan Den Aarde, which translates something like Steve of Earth. His real name was Adrian Beers. Mm-hmm. And he was given very detailed information about life on the planet, or his host's planet. And that was very similar to information that other contactees from the 50s had been given. And that is that, all these basic needs like education, healthcare, housing, and food, on the higher planets, these are available for everyone. No one goes without. And everyone, the people on those planets, according to these stories, work 3 hours a week at most. And they work for the general good, for the betterment of all. Yeah. Of course, we can't switch to that kind of system overnight because we have so many problems to solve. Yeah. But we could do so much in such a short time if we just get our heads in the right direction. You can get rid.
I mean, look at here. You had Bernie Sanders that was running, and Bernie was all for free education and free healthcare. And, and that's a misnomer. Nothing's free. I mean, you do have to pay, but the thing is that there's such an inequality. I would say equal healthcare, equal education. That would be if I could teach Bernie instead of saying free, because he got beat up for that, because everybody's like, well, it's going to come from someone's going to pay for it. It's like, no, equal, make it equal. And thus equal would be free. If you apply that principle of sharing that I mentioned before, then it's just everybody contributing to the general good. Yeah. So some people will be growing food, other people will be teaching, and others again will be taking care of people's health, etc. Yeah. And where does money need to come in? Well, because that doctor needs that BMW, and he needs the bigger house, and the farmer. I don't know. I've never heard a farmer complain except for the weather. But the teacher, the teacher needs the bigger car, the BMW. That's what it is. I doubt if there's many teachers with BMWs, even in the U.S. It's not a profession that makes you a lot of money, John. You're some. I will say you are correct. I don't want to beat up teachers, but there are some that I do know that make 6 figures. Well, I'm sure there are some. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. But the problem is that where they live, though, they have to make 6 figures. I knew teachers in Chicago, in the Chicago system, who, the upper end, they were making 6 figures, but the thing is it's so expensive to live in Chicago. that you had to. I mean, six figure. When I lived in Chicago downtown, people were like, well, how, I want to move to Chicago. What's it going to cost me? And I tell them, like, look, unless you're mid six figures, don't even think about it, because you're going to be spending all your money just trying to survive. You're not going to enjoy life. Right. You're not going to have time to go to the opera. You're not going to have time to, to join the culture and stuff, because you're just going to be paying bills and everything.
So if we cut out that whole competition bit and the need to earn money, we would create so much time to develop our own creativity and talents and begin, to the art of self-realization. In fact,
talk about
grow into who we really are.
Talk about making money. Unfortunately, we got to pay some bills here. So we'll take another quick break. We'll come back, and I promise this will be the last break. I do. I really do.
All right.
I can stop them after the second hour. So you're listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast with our very special guest.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
Andrew, that was rude. But you're with our very special guest, Gerard Aartsen.
Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
You are listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton, as we roll on into the evening here. Wow, what a show. What a show. What a delightful conversation I think we're having. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. If you would like to join into the conversation, you can always do that at YouTube. The only chat room that we use is out there on YouTube. So if you're already out there on YouTube, put your comments in there. We'll respond to you. If you are not on YouTube, we have a link on our website at themidnightocean.com. If you scroll down halfway down the page, you'll see it on the right-hand side called Chat. You can click on that. That will actually open up a chat window that you can also participate. I've always said that the chat room is 50% of the show. You get to see what other people are saying, what they're doing, what they're thinking. Some appropriate, mostly appropriate. We do have some inappropriate, but our chat moderators take care of those. So you will not be exposed to that negativity for very, very long. But right now, I want to get back to our guest because I know that he has a very limited amount of time, and I want to make sure that we cover everything. We will never, ever cover everything that we need to, but we'll get to the high points with our guest, Gerard Aartsen. Gerard, so in this last 30 minutes that we have together, what is the masters? What if they could come down and say, do this one thing for now, step one? What would step one look like?
I have no doubt, based on my studies, my research, my own experiences, that they would say the same thing as the visitors from space have said, and that is create right human relations, give expression, in other words, to the oneness of humanity that's in your hearts by creating a social and economic justice. We can do it technologically. We have the food, we have the means, we have the resources to go around, enough of those to go around for everyone. And once we create that justice, we will at the same time create freedom, because if you don't have to worry about where your next meal comes from, if you don't have to be afraid that you will lose your house, or people might come in and get your meager belongings, then we will be free finally. So just share what we have, the wealth of this planet, the abundance of this planet, and perhaps, and most likely, because as we said before the break, we're witnessing the last gasp of the current structures and powers that be. Personally, I'm surprised that the economic and financial systems haven't yielded yet. But more and more experts and analysts and observers are saying that it is going to happen inevitably, sooner rather than later. And when that time comes, I think it's important for all of us to go out into the streets and show our so-called leaders the way forward into the future where we give expression to our oneness and, give justice and freedom to everyone. Guarantee those two things, and we will take away the cause of so many, if not all, of our problems.
So the second part is, and I understand that's at a macro level. So what change can I do as an individual today based upon what are the masters?
With all your might, at every turn of the way, every opportunity that you get, in the voting booth, in letters that you write to the editor, in phone-ins to programs or radio shows, or your representative in Congress or the Senate or wherever, make it known that you want justice and freedom in this world for everyone. Universal justice and freedom. This is the one thing that we can do. Make our voices heard. Of course, on a personal level, you can, if you have the ability, help a homeless person to some food. We can all make a difference in our immediate community. But for the good of the world and the future of the world and our children and our grandchildren, what we must do is make it clear to our leaders that we will not put up anymore with any further delay and freedom for corporations. But the people need freedom now.
Yeah.
And the people need to be able to live without fear and want.
Yeah.
And that should come first. And once that comes first, we make that our priority, each and every one of us individually, and we speak out for that, then, there's no stopping us. Just remember the days in 1989 when one Eastern European country after another, this was this Moloch, this immutable, the countries behind the immutable Iron Curtain, under iron rule of the iron fist of the Soviets. And suddenly, as if by magic somebody waving a magic wand, people had enough.
Yeah.
And they no longer put up with the repressive border controls. People had been killed trying to cross borders illegally between Eastern Europe and Western Europe until that time. And then suddenly, so many people in Eastern Europe said, okay, that's it, we have enough. And they started to walk. And they didn't stop. And one border after another just fell. Mm-hmm. It was the most amazing thing.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean,
and we can do that. We can do that now in the West. When the economy finally crashes, and the 2008 will be nothing like what's because this system doesn't work anymore. It doesn't fulfill our needs. It doesn't help us. It's in our way.
Yeah. I agree. And unfortunately, what most people are doing now here in the States is that they are prepping, or they're taking care of themselves. They're thinking about, well, I need to have gold. I need to have food for me. I need to do this, but it doesn't. And I kind of agree with you. It doesn't need to get to that point to begin with.
Not at all. Not at all. Because, if just imagine this. If my freedom depends on somebody else's lack of freedom, then what kind of freedom is that? That's not freedom at all. So we have to make sure that freedom applies to everyone.
Correct.
And the same goes exactly for justice. If justice for me depends on injustice for someone else, what kind of justice is that? That's not justice.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that, and there's enough to go around for everyone, not just in material goods, that we include everyone, because every child is us. We have been that child. We had those needs of food and healthcare and education and shelter.
Wow. No, I understand it. I get it. I definitely get, one of the things too, I think is very important. And for the listeners that are out there, I mean, most of my listeners, I feel are disconnected from mainstream media, which is, I think, a start. I mean, that's the first thing. Turn the TV off. And, because the mainstream media, they're occupying your mind. And I have found, since I started to redo this show a month and a half ago, that my clarity of mind has increased because you only have so much space, right? And if you're filling it with junk and commercials and the commercialism and everything, you're not leaving very much room for the enlightenment, for the things that you really need to survive or to grow. I get that. And that's the one thing that I will say is a benefit of doing this radio show. Besides, I get to talk to great people and interesting guests. For me, it is the fact that the time that I spend prepping for the show and getting ready, it's less time that I sit in front of TV. And I can tell there's a significant change in my ability, cognitive abilities have changed.
That's great.
Have changed drastically.
Because we are through the media, whether it's game shows, whether it's sports games, football games, or commercials, we are so indoctrinated with that concept of competition that people have, been conditioned to react from fear. But if you can leave that behind, if you can see that everyone is you, everyone is me, everyone is us, because we all have the same basic needs, then you become free and you can embrace those needs for everyone, and you don't have to be afraid to miss out and look only after yourself. And that's such a major release in terms of stress and resources.
No, it is. It is. Well, that's the other thing too, is this crushing debt that we put ourselves under. We were thinking about that. I don't know how it is there in Europe, but here in America, they were saying that if you lost your paycheck, you would be basically financially insolvent within a month.
Yes. Yeah. Things are going that way here. It's not quite as bad in Holland yet, but I know in Holland we have, I believe, the highest amount of debt per capita in terms of mortgages in the world, I think. The UK is very much going down the same road as the US, also in terms of consumer debt and expenses. So, the systems are broke.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, it was funny because, I just take personal experience. Sandy and I paid off our credit cards, got them completely paid off. And the next thing we know, we start getting letters in the mail from the credit card company. Are you okay? It's like, is everything okay?
Yes.
And by the way, here's a gift. Here's a check that you can take money out of and 0% interest. But it was funny because we literally got these letters in the mail from the credit card. Are you guys okay? Is everything okay? They would call and ask.
Why are you not incurring debt?
Yeah. Why aren't you? Is it okay? Are you okay? It's like that. Darn well they don't care about our health. They're not calling to say, hey, are you not? What's going on? They're like, what? Are you still alive? That's what they're asking.
Right, yeah.
Are you still alive? It's just, you're right. And I wish I wish they would just come down and show themselves. I think, but of course that's the easy way.
Tell you what, the masters of wisdom, our elder brothers, several of them have returned into the world already. And that is what makes these new energies, also so powerful, because they're stepping them down and we're responding to them far more, strongly than we would otherwise. According to Benjamin Graham, I mentioned his name earlier as one of the exponents of the Ageless Wisdom teaching. The world teacher has been in the world since 1977 and has been waiting for the right time to step forward. And the right time would be when humanity comes to its senses, because before that it wouldn't have any use. It wouldn't be any use for him to step forward, because people would be too busy, enjoying their credits and cards and their whatever they need to do. But as soon as, according to Benjamin Graham's information, and he's been working with the Master of Wisdom very closely since 1959, the world teacher will step forward once our systems begin to crash. and we're beginning to realize what life is actually about. And through a worldwide connection of the satellites, TV channels, and everything else, because he's well known, among many people in the media already. But of course, it goes against their corporate interests to report on him at this time. But at that time, all the media networks on the internet and everywhere will be connected, and there will be worldwide broadcast, according to Benjamin Graham. And the world teacher, and his personal name is Maitreya. The Buddhists are actually waiting for Maitreya, the fifth Buddha, the future Buddha, will speak to the whole world at the same time. And at that time, he will, again, I'm quoting Benjamin Graham, make a telepathic rapport with every individual, man, woman, and every child above the age of 14. And so we will hear his message inwardly. We will hear him speak, but we won't see his lips move because there will be a telepathic rapport. So everyone will hear his words in their own language. You will hear it in English. I will hear it in Dutch, in the Japanese, etc., etc., etc. And while he gives us his message, in which he will show us, the spiritual heights from which we have descended, and the material depths to which we have fallen, and the brilliant future that is ahead of us, he will also release his energy. And apparently, the world teacher is the embodiment on this planet of the energy of love, which is one of the three aspects of divinity. And that will flow out in such massive strength that it will feel apparently as if he embraces every single one of us. And that will give us such an experience of our oneness that a critical mass of humanity after this whole event has taken place will be willing and ready and jumping at the opportunity to set this world to rights. And not everyone will suddenly, be selfless and altruistic,
Mm-hmm.
but enough people will be, because they have been ready and they have been waiting for this time, for this kind of inspiration, and they will fly into motion to change this world for the better. So the help is here. And perhaps, because the original subject of my books and of the show was the extraterrestrial presence. The flying saucers haven't been coming here since the 1950s, or they've been here all along, but especially even more so since 1945 and 1950s, not to give us some kind of paranormal experience, or, give this humanity something to dabble with. They're here in support of this momentous event in our history of the change from the old age, the transition from the old age into a new age. Mm. And this is always accompanied by the coming or the return of a teacher, and it's always accompanied by an exponentially increased extraterrestrial presence. Mm. And we have been seeing most mysterious lights and craft in the skies for decades now.
So
it's all building up to this momentous event.
It's kind of like the Red Cross. They're moving into their positions to help support us.
Sort of, yes. Mm-hmm. And they've been protecting the planet. They have been cleaning up a lot of our mess to the extent that, the planet is fortunately for us, more habitable than it would have been without their help, with all the toxins that we've been releasing, and especially the fallout from nuclear tests, etc.
Sure.
Yes, they are here in support of that momentous event, and this choice, will be put before humanity by the world teacher at that time, and we will have to make that choice in our hearts. And according to Benjamin Graham's information, the world teacher knows that a sufficient number of humanity will make the right choice, have actually made the right choice, except we don't know it yet because of our, we're still trapped in these old structures.
When are we in the age of Aquarius now? Or
technically speaking, we are apparently, because the energies of Aquarius are gradually just slightly stronger already now than the old energies of Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the mindset isn't there yet. We don't
young.
know yet in sufficient numbers how to respond
Sure.
to these new energies.
Sure. We're young. All right, my friend. So, how do we learn more about the Masters and the Masters of Wisdom, and how your website? How do our listeners find you?
All the information about my books can be found on my website, which is www.bga for Bernard Gerard Arnold Publications, bgapublications.nl. I don't sell my books on my website because my books, people can buy them through Amazon and all the other Barnes and Noble, all the big booksellers. And in my books, I bring together this crucial information from the early contactees and make the link with the wisdom teachings, but also with the state of the world and the economic and social situation in the world. For more specific information about the Return of the World Teacher and the Masters of Wisdom, people could check out Share International magazine. It has a presence on the web. It's the chief editor is Benjamin Krem, and the website is share-international.org. And people will find links there to the magazine and Benjamin Krem's books.
Sure. Are you in contact with Benjamin Krem? I know that he's quite.
I've worked with him since 1978.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And then about 5-6 years ago, I started writing about the extraterrestrial presence based on my additional reading and research.
Gotcha. Is he still doing lectures, or is he?
If he's quite old now, so his health doesn't always cooperate. It doesn't always allow him. But I know whenever he feels up to it, he still does lectures in London, and I believe the dates. There's a weekly a monthly lecture in London. When he can't do it himself, one of his London co-workers will step in. But the dates can also be found on share-international.org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's 94 or so.
Something like that. Yes.
Very spry though. He's still pretty. I've seen a couple of videos, and he's still pretty spry guy.
Yeah. There's no stopping him.
Yeah. So well, all right. So we unfortunately, this is the problem when you have great conversations. The time flies. And Gerard, I would love to have you back at a later date. Or you don't have to answer that now. I don't want to put you on the spot. But
I'd be happy to join you and continue our conversation. I'm enjoying it very much.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's so much to discuss.
There is so much. And and I think this is such an important topic that we don't want to overload. We're all about, and this is part of the thing that I'm learning, is that I want it all now. I want all of the knowledge you have now. Give me all, and this spans several, not generations, but decades. So it's kind of like we got to get little pieces, and that's the main thing. Is let's get step one. So we now have step one from you, and let's go with that and work with it, and then from there, we'll have you back on maybe in a month or so, and we'll do step two. What's the next episode? But the first step, and look, people that know me know that I am not here to sell books, but I will have to say that if you're going to make a purchase in any book, this one here, to get you guys ready for step two, I would definitely look at bgapublications.nl, and we do have a link to your books. We will put up your Amazon links as well to all of those, but people can reach out to you directly. And with the last minute or so, is there any parting words of wisdom that you want to bestow upon us?
Yes. Well, I don't know if it's wisdom, but I forgot to mention that within about 2 weeks, I'll be releasing a free ebook, 50 pages, called Before Disclosure, Dispelling the Fog of Speculation. And listeners might be interested. I'm going to try and get it all over the internet. And if you like, I can send you a copy so you can share it via your website.
Absolutely. And when that launches, we ought to bring you back on and have you talk, give a little Vinette about it. Perfect. All right.
I'd be happy to.
All right. Thank you, my friend. You take care of yourself. Have a good evening.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And we
have a good day.
Yep. You too. We'll definitely be in touch. Be well, my friend. So there you go.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So, wow. Another great conversation. I'm going to have to stop this music. This is going to drive me nuts. I don't like that song for some reason. And I know it's one of those songs. It's called Sleeping Sheep. And I shouldn't be offended by it, but it's one of those songs that I don't like. I don't enjoy it. But as we wrap up, so for all those that are listening to the night show, this is actually a pre-record. I probably should have told you that from the beginning. But what we'll do is that we're going to get this out there as a bonus segment. So this will be produced. What we will do is we will follow up, obviously, with another live show, and everything in the near future. But, this show is a bonus show. But, we could have waited until we got a live feed and did it at 10 at night. But, being in Amsterdam, I do want to be cognizant of other people's need to sleep and get rest. So, but, we will get this out there to you guys that are listening. So those that are listening to tonight, please be reminded that this is a recording. I'll make sure I will do that. But of course, leave your comments because we will definitely follow up with you, our faithful listeners. I just want to say, synchronicity, that ought to be the word of the week. Actually, the word of the month. It is amazing. We had Brooks Agnew on last night, and right in his topic that he was talking about, and then today's topic was Gerard Aartsen joining us. They go hand in hand. They really do. And it's just amazing. But even Albert Einstein in all of his wisdom said God doesn't roll dice. There is no randomness to why things happen the way they happen. And I am a firm believer that our great guests are put in front of us and thus put in front of you for a reason, for a purpose. We've had several guests on the show. I always thought that my purpose was to do podcasts, to do radio shows, to bring the old Art Bell style shows back to mainstream. And we're doing that. We're getting better at what we do. No doubt about it. We are leaps and bounds over our first podcast as far as quality. Our guests are still outstanding, but as far as quality, I'm growing, I'm learning, and that's what life's all about. But we can grow and learn. There's so much more that we need to do. Every one of us, even myself. And it is definitely a craft that we're doing here. But as I was saying, before I went off on my tangent, that there is a reason why we have the shows that we have. I don't know what that reason is, but if you look at them, they all align with each other. There is an underlying thread in our shows. Now, we don't schedule our shows that way. It is a first come, first serve basis for our guests. We reach out to them. They pick a time and a date that works for them, and then we have them on the show. But that just tells you the synchronicity of life, because all of our shows run together. It doesn't matter if they're diverse, cryptozoology, to parapsychology, to ancient biblical philosophies. It's amazing. So when you see this, as I have here sitting in your captain's chair on the ship in troubled waters, I can tell you that you're not alone. And the Midnight Ocean is dedicated to bringing you the best quality show that we possibly can. And to do that, we need quality guests. So if there is a guest that you would like to have on the show, please reach out to me. You can send an email directly. It's production.themidnightocean@gmail.com. That's production.themidnightocean@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. But like always, we always end our show with our good friend, Ed Roman. Because without love, there really is nothing else. So I want to tell you guys, remember to always be love.
Of an inch tell you